stormwater utility department. Tyler.
All right. I discussed at the last council meeting some of the highlights of the stormwater utility that was proposed. Back a few months ago, the resolution that was passed enacted a committee that would be formed of citizens and of community members, all residential, commercial, and industrial. They all had the equal invitation, and we had a good cross-section selected and participate in this committee, and they have done their duty and provided council a draft ordinance for their review. Now, some of the highlights of that ordinance, it would create Chapter 929 of the Urbana Codified Ordinances to establish a stormwater utility. The stormwater infrastructure system would be a public utility funded as a enterprise zone, or enterprise fund, on the last one, sorry. No more than 30% of the generated revenue per year can go towards operating. So the other 70%, they wanted at least 70% to go towards capital type projects. This would have joint oversight by myself, city engineer, and the city wastewater superintendent. And an annual report would be generated each year at the request of council or the Stormwater Review Committee. The fee that was imposed by this ordinance is a $5 flat fee per month per meter added to all utility bills. And we did have the question arise, well, what about deduct meters? Does this get popped on a deduct meter as well? That's not the intention. The intention is to have it go on each utility bill one time. No automatic increases are proposed in the first 5 years, so this would remain a constant fee for 5 years. After that 5th year, another stormwater review committee would be formed and look over the progress of the stormwater fund, what it's done, whether it needs to be increased or whether we think we can decrease it, those types of things. Now, as far as increases go, this has a written no more than 10% increase during that review period in the 5th year. So $550 would be all that it could increase to. Extraterritorial utility customers, it did not exclude them, so they are included within this fee. This is set to start in either January of 17, that'll probably be moved now to February of 2017, with the first fee reflected on a homeowner's or on a utility bill in April. 30-day delinquencies would be assessed in the same manner any other utility bill is. The subsequent Stormwater Review Committee would have at least 7 members. Like I mentioned the last time, this particular committee, I think we had about 13 to 17 show up each time, so we had a pretty good gathering for that. And there's some possible changes that council could make, but those can be entertained at you guys' convenience. So I think that's all I have.
Okay. Anybody in the public like to speak to this? Come on up. Name and address, please.
Brian Wan, 788 Amherst Drive. I was part of the Stormwater Advisory Committee, and there's no dispute that we need to take care of the stormwater systems. Coming here on this rainy night's good accent point to that. So there's no argument on that. I do have some concerns on the funding method for it, which is really what this is all about, is how to get the money to do it and operate it. And as we all know, the stormwater system is part of the infrastructure system that's been maintained out of the general budget for years and years, like all the other sidewalks and lighting and other things that are part of the city responsibility. The creation of the stormwater utility fee is, in a sense, really a tax, and calling it a fee. And I think a question that should be considered is what's going to happen with the money that's currently going out of the general budget to fund stormwater operation and upkeep and maintenance. It was stated, Mayor Bean at the last meeting, that Bucyrus saw a good kickback, I guess, extra money come into the city's ability to use for something when they put the stormwater utility fee in. So I think that's a question that I would like to hear an answer to. Historically in our community, increasing taxes has been put to a vote by the voters to see if they want to increase it. I know I can certainly see the advantages if you want to do it. Communities all over Ohio and other parts of the country are doing this. It's an easy way to get more funds, but it's just not what we've done. And I just want you to realize it's almost like you're going around the community and holding your hand out to every resident every month, another $5 to get to you. And some people it's more impact than it is for others. A person who is a single head of house making $12 an hour is equivalent to raising their city income tax by 17%. The fee that you're proposing is a pretty significant increase in their taxes. You know, it seems somewhat strange that we're asking the residents to pay a small house to pay the same as an industrial facility, a hospital, whatever it is, and paying the same thing. Obviously have a different impact on the stormwater usage. It's attracted to industry. I'm not opposed to that. I want to see it attract industry and so forth, but just realize you're doing that on the backs of the residents when you do that. And when you impose a fee instead of doing it through the tax structure you're doing it now, like you were talking about in the previous public hearing of new employees coming in and tax revenue to the city, they're not having a part in maintaining the stormwater infrastructure. That's all being taken from the residents now paying this utility fee instead of coming through the normal channels. The small increase, I'm not really advocating increasing income taxes. I'm encouraging you to continue to be good stewards of the budget money that you have, which I've been seeing evidence of, and thank you for that. But it becomes a point where you see you need more money to do the city's business, which is our business, then make a proposal to the citizens to raise the taxes. But a small increase in income tax of about 0.07%, which would go from 1.4 to 1.47, would raise the equivalent money that you're looking at in this stormwater utility fee, which would be about a 5% increase in taxes of that person making $12 an hour. Another thing that I thought about is the way it's set up now. Accountability happens when you're doing something, the room's not very full tonight, it's pretty much empty, okay? And the more people who are affected by something, the more accountability you have, the more eyes looking at it and questioning and making sure they're good stewards of it. And so the system is set up now with major industries and commercial businesses paying what's a very insignificant fee to them, $5 a month. They're not really going to care if you raise it 10% and 10% because it's still an insignificant fee. The other option that was looked at, the DRU, where it's the equivalent residential unit, and then you base on the square footage of hard surface area. That obviously brings into play a much higher fee for people who have a lot of surface area. Then they're watching very close and will have a part in the process. So again, I just want to encourage you to consider whatever method you do, putting it to the citizens to vote on, and realizing how it's set up now is really asking the residents to cover the whole thing and effectively. And the others are involved a little bit, but it's a small way. Thank you. I went over my time by a minute and a half. Thank you.
You're short the last time. Any other public person like to speak to this? Mr. Hoffman, anything to say?
No, sir.
Mr. Paul?
Oh, yeah. So we have roughly 1,500 catch basins, I think, correct?
Yeah.
So knowing the condition of those catch basins, if you could replace a certain number by tomorrow, the worst ones, how many would it be?
That's part of what this program needs to develop is an inspection process.
So we don't even know.
Our
at this point.
inventory, we think is pretty good of the number, but their condition is another animal
Right.
that needs to be conquered. So this does have a little bit for force account labor, but you know, long term, I'd like to see an employee come out of this if that would be the best thing, because until we get to inspecting our systems, it might be a little difficult to know what needs replaced first.
Well, that would go a long way, because I know even just a couple of years ago, we had a conversation with administration, and the point was, for the infrastructure items, instead of, oh my God, the system just failed, let's go fix it, and then you have no money to do anything else, the object was, let's get ourselves on a maintenance schedule, so we can fix things or replace things before they collapse and fall apart and cost us extra money, which I think is great, and I think this would go a long way to doing that. But I was just kind of curious, is, based on what your knowledge is right now, I mean, how many of these catch basins are falling apart? I mean, I've seen pictures of them in some of the other proposals and presentations you've given, but how many do you, or you could even say, what percentage of the 1,500 do you feel are in disrepair or in urgent need of attention?
I'd say probably 30% of them would need some kind of immediate attention, or they're likely to fail within the next 10 years.
So that's roughly 400, give or take. And it's about, what, $2,500 a piece?
Yeah.
I think. So you can do the math. At least with this, we can borrow against it and start to get some improvements done. I don't know. It seems to me that everybody I've talked to, they support the idea. As Mr. Juan says, the question is, how do you fund it appropriately?
Right.
You know, I obviously you think the residents, $5 per resident isn't enough, or rather is too much. You'd rather see businesses charge more. What levels have you heard that would be fair? Residents pay $2 a month, businesses pay 10. What has the feedback been that you've gotten?
At the committee, we were all given a good opportunity to talk and share thoughts.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember the numbers we looked at, but I think for a resident, we're paying like $3 a meter. Then you have to raise somewhat significantly the others, because there's a lot more residential.
Right,
And
exactly.
so it works out to say, it was something like, we had commercial and industrial, and then the commercial had to be something like $25 a meter, and then the industrial was gonna have to be $40 a meter, 45. I can't remember the number, but it was, it was more significant than $5.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as much as the ERU units that we're looking at back 5 years ago.
Well, that's a whole other animal. That's a calculation. That's a constant monitoring and everything else. So, okay. Yeah, I mean, I get it. If I was somebody on a fixed income, even $5 a month, it's $5 a month that you don't have going forward. And I think we'll get some pushback, obviously, like we did with the recycling, I think, on the bill. But the other side of the equation is so much of our infrastructure's fallen into disrepair because we haven't been charging people for things for the past how many decades. So, in my mind, I'm arguing with myself because we haven't done anything with this for decades, and now we're in the situation where we've got to do something, and we have to play catch up. So, how do you balance that? How do you balance that? And then, we still have a couple areas of the city that still have flood issues, to my understanding, that we need to address. If I was a resident in one of those areas, I'd be super hot. This has to get addressed. I mean, that's a quality of life issue in my mind.
I was just going to speak briefly to the project handout that we had passed out during the process, and I know council's seen it before, but showing that there's been years in the past where essentially we've had money that has been designated to go towards a stormwater related project, and we have one next year on 36 where we're doing all the stormwater work out there. That's going to come right out of the capital budget. Well, what's getting sacrificed in all of that is paving streets or meeting other capital needs. And so, where's the money going to go that's freed up by this? It's going to go right back into providing capital needs for the city, whether that's street paving or equipment or whatever may be needed. But street paving historically has been the one that's been sacrificed to be able to make some of these stormwater projects that we've accomplished happen. If we hadn't sacrificed the paving, we'd have more paved streets, but we wouldn't have gotten any of the stormwater projects done. So it's a catch-22 in that sense, but if that money's freed up, it is gonna give us additional funds to do paving and things like that. The other thing is, we've talked about a lot is dilapidated curbs. I mean, we've had decades and decades of lack of maintenance by property owners of the curbs, and so many streets, we don't have curbs left. So this fee, you know, one of the capital uses of that fee could be for curb work, and we've already looked at our paving list next year and how we could address curbs on the paving projects. So, if this fee was enacted, so.
I haven't heard anybody that's talked to me that said they were against this, that this is a bad idea. You know, we shouldn't spend money on this. The question is, how do you fund it? How do you fund it fairly? Is it fair for a business to pay the same amount as a homeowner? I kind of look at it in some respects and say, well, all right, it's stormwater, it's rain, it's coming down now. It's got to run somewhere, whether you have a big parking lot or not. It's the same amount of water going through the system. And it's not, it just seems to be to everybody's benefit. So, I don't know, $5 per person, per business, per commercial unit is fair? I'm still kind of arguing with myself. I'd like to hear what you guys think.
That's the same thing I'm thinking. You know, how do you fund it? It's got to be done. And you need to think about efficiency and the financial end of it. How do you bill it? How do you track it? And this sounds to me like it would be a very simple way. I feel like if it was across the board, everybody's the same. I've also had some people say, you know, why should I pay $5 and Mondays or somebody spends $5 and there's so much more runoff? I don't know what the answer to that is. You know, everybody pays the same for recycling, whether they use it or not. It's actually a source to fund a function like that, and I think this is kind of the same way. So I don't think there's any issue about whether we need to do it or not. It's back to what Dwight says, it's the funding source. I think you know, the sooner you get on with it, the better. This probably would be the quickest way to get on with it. I don't know. I don't have a problem with doing it, it's again, the funding of it.
I don't know if I can add anything to that. I mean, we're in a catch-22, as Doug said. I mean, we're sacrificing stuff right now. Obviously, the sewer and the sidewalks and gutters, not sidewalks, but curbs. We're going to make some people unhappy, definitely. But as Dwight said, we have to look at what the industrial and commercial are paying. I mean, I don't think that's right. They're paying the same amount as somebody who's got a, you know, 700 square foot house, and you got Walmart, you got Honeywell, but you got all these people out there paying $5 also. I don't think that's fair. Again, we have to meditate and ponder on this stuff and see what we can do with this.
So is the question that you leave, say, the resident fee at $5, but you charge the industry and commercial 10? Does that fix it? Is it a quality issue, or is it actually how people are going to afford that are on fixed incomes? I mean, I don't know. I'm down to ask this question.
The difference between
This is
3 and
something
5.
we should have talked about a
Yeah,
long time ago.
You know, the difference between 3 and 5.
Well, we can change the rating structure when we
Right.
pass this. That's where I'm going, is if we want to do that or not.
Ultimately, if you have any changes to make, the second reading would be important to make, you know, make motions to make any of those changes so that we can bring back an amended ordinance. I mean, right now, at this point, this is what the committee put forward, but ultimately, if council feels that there are changes that they would like to make, it would be the appropriate time to do that tonight during the second reading. You know, what those specific changes may be, and we can bring back an amended, and I think it would send it back to the second reading first. Okay, so.
I mean, it sounds like everybody, yeah, we know it needs to happen, how are we going to fund it?
You know, the difference between $3 and $5 to somebody in fixed income probably is insignificant, as much as $5 is to a big company. You know, $2 more a month, 50 cents a week. I mean, fixed income is fixed income, but whether it's 5 or 3, I don't know.
Well, I understand we need to do something about it, but my thought is, I don't like to make that kind of decision to the public. I would rather put it on the ballot and let the public vote on it. That way, if they pass it, fine and dandy. But I don't want them coming back to me and complaining that I passed an ordinance that they don't want. And just like a mayor, there's probably, 10, 15 streets in my area that don't have curbs, don't have sidewalks, and don't have stormwater drainage. None. Do I still have to pay the $5?
They don't only way you're ever gonna get them is if you pay the $5. I mean, there's no resources or funding to put streets and curbs in where you are. The only way to get funding is to do something like this.
And there are projects in every ward, it's just, what those projects are.
But I don't want to put the
You wanna pay the money for it, but you want it.
on us. I'd rather for the public to say, yes, I'll take that, we need it, and go with it.
Yeah, they
For
say-
us to vote it in, I
And
think
if
it's
the
wrong.
public says no, then you never get your sidewalks and curbs.
We don't know if we'll say that.
Too late after it does. I don't know.
Bond, I checked on bond, they did have to be in by February the 1st in order to get it on the ballot. That's why I say, thank you.
This is something council can act on without it having to go on the ballot.
Right.
Legally, you can.
We have a public forum tonight, and nobody's here, so how much are people really gonna care? How much are they gonna understand the issue before they vote? I don't wanna spend $5, no. What's it for? I don't care, I just don't wanna spend $5. It's more important what it's for and what we're trying to get done.
That's one of the reasons we established the committee in the first place, was to get a certain cross-section of the community that we could properly educate and explain to the need and the mechanisms. And we did that accurately. We explained the ERU process. We explained a flat fee process. We explained a tiered approach where maybe you have a 3-6-9 or something like that. So we did all that. I think one of the reasons we ended up with the $5 flat rate was because the committee couldn't agree on a tiered flat rate as a 3-6-9 or something
And
like that.
what's the downside on the tier? There had to be a downside that,
The downside was trying to explain why the differences in the increments. Yes, there maybe needs to be, but what does that difference need to be? So that was what the committee struggled with. I think Brian can attest to that.
The issue comes in to significantly lower the residential, because there's what, 4,000
Right.
residential
Yeah, we had
meters?
4,315,
And how many, the others, there's
494 commercial and 44 industrial.
You got 4,000, you drop it, you gotta raise the 400's not quite a bit, and so we had business owners represented and people renting properties, and you're looking at what the effect's gonna be on that, and so that's where the tussle comes in. Not always, it's the money.
so the upside on making it flat is what? Simplicity?
Simplicity.
How much more does it cost the city, or how much more difficult is it to manage it if it's tiered? Any difference?
It's not, but yeah, I think the simplicity of the rate at a flat fee of $5 was what was suggested.
And this will just be a line item in the water bill.
I've got a lot to say, but I'm not gonna say anything, except that,
What do you-
anybody else out here like to say something?
Well, if you have points,
I
now's
have
the time.
several points. Mr. Hall.
I look at this a lot like a lot of you guys, but I also look at this as something that's absolutely necessary. It's part of the operation of the city. It's an infrastructure item. We're not talking about going out and planting trees or putting new fence in somewhere. It's not a beautification item. I mean, it could be if you're talking about curbs, but the purpose of the curb is to get the water to the catch basin. The administration, now and past, have tried to do what they can inside of the general fund, which just doesn't, it's not enough money there. I mean, this stormwater system's going backwards. And, I get everyone's point, we should take it to the voter. We were elected as council people to follow the rules that are given to us, to make good business decisions for them. That's why they elected us. If people don't like this being a rule, then we need to change change our rules. But it's completely within the scope of what we were kind of hired to do by the citizens. And it's probably gonna sit not too well with some people. Some people it's gonna really upset them. In my purest form, I think we should send everything to a vote to the citizens. But in this case, this is a critical infrastructure item. It is gonna free up some funds like Mr. Wong said, but, but that's gonna go right back into infrastructure. So I'm okay with freeing up some funds to spend on streets and things that we need. It's okay as a city to kind of patch things up. It's like if you have a house and a roof's leaking, you don't go get a vote from everybody to see if you need to fix it. The roof's leaking, you fix it. That's just part of your responsibility in home ownership. It's part of our responsibility as a council and as a city governing body. That's the way I see it. And I do know that $5 is gonna be a lot of money to certain people. I've got 6 people in my household, so I'm still paying $5. There's gonna be people, as Brian said, that they're making $12 and it's just them, and they're gonna be paying $5. But it's all everybody's city equally. We all live in the city together. We don't charge people different fees for how many miles they put on the streets. We don't charge bigger trucks more for little cars. We know bigger trucks do more damage. And we went through that with the recycling thing. You really want all them, should we charge them? Should we, there's cities looking at that stuff, charging the daggone mileage to figure out who pays what for the streets. We can't do that. Again, I'm willing to make the tough decision. I do understand that if we levy more to businesses, it's gonna have to be it's gonna just be so exorbitantly high to get $1 or 2 back from the residents. I think $5 is easy, it makes sense, it generates the right amount of money. I think it's a good plan. I'm comfortable with the structure, I'm comfortable voting for it, and that's kind of my piece. This is because if we go, let's say we did go to the ballot and we lost, then what? We've all deemed this critical and necessary, so then we go back against the voter and push it through after that fact. What looks worse? Being proactive and doing what's right, not because we didn't get our way in the ballot, but doing what we know is right, versus going to the ballot, say it loses, and then we have to come back and say, well, we still want it, so we're gonna go ahead and do it anyway.
My point exactly.
So I just think it's a good business decision. I'm
You
willing
know,
to vote for it.
Also, if you think about the person on fixed income that needs the curb out front, a curb out
They're
front's
never gonna be able to pay for that.
curb out front's $1,500, it'll never get fixed. Here's an opportunity for $5 a month to get an opportunity to get it fixed, maybe.
Right, your street gets paved, your curb's crumbling, these guys are gonna try to find a way to work that out. Yeah. Plus, there were other things in this that were coming too, like getting street sweeping back up. We know that's part of an important, part of a sewer maintenance or stormwater maintenance. I think stormwater fits in the same vibe as water and sewer. I mean, it fits in as a utility when you think of it that way. The EPA is starting to push this thing further and further into mandate. So, I mean, we're kind of ahead of the curve here. When we had the folks come in and spoke to the stormwater runoff going down into the Gulf, the big dead zone, and how important it is to manage stormwater properly. So, I'm comfortable with it as it is. We've had a long time to talk through this. I appreciate the board's comments. I think they were all very valid comments, and I agree and disagree with some. That's where I'm at with this. I know you guys all have your own opinions about it. That's where I'm at. So.
Okay. Anyone else? Last shot.
1 more minute.
30 seconds, go ahead. I'm used to 10 o'clock meetings.
So the point you're making, I guess, is basically supporting the point that I'm trying to make, is that you need to look at more holistically the needs you have as a city, and the several needs that you have. And so the income tax, if there's a need, it's been in place a long time, if there's a need to change that, look at it, make the case, and see what the voters do with it. I agree, you have a lot of responsibility you've been entrusted with, that's part of representative government, and you have a lot of decisions to make, that's part of what it is. This is somewhat different though. This is creating a new income stream that wasn't there before. And it's basically creating, instead of raising tax, you're finding another way to do it without calling it a tax. And it's really it's been supported the whole time. So I encourage you to think about it holistically, and approach the whole thing. Your point's well taken, because it could be voted down, and if it does, it would be uncomfortable being in your position to say, okay, we'll do the stormwater utility. That would look worse for you guys than doing it in the first place. So I understand the position you're in, but I want to encourage you to think it through and do the right thing, and thank you for your service.
Mr. Hess, if I could just add one comment. We've talked about this a couple times, and forget the dollars, the $5, forget all that. If you just look at what the committee came in capital and less operation. So what they were looking at was like a 70% of the revenue is gonna be used for capital, about 30% in the operation side. If you go with income tax, it's gonna be 75% operations, 25% capital. So either you have to raise the income tax high enough so your 25% covers enough of the capital you need, or you're gonna string out your project so long, you're never gonna build up enough capital. In the meantime, you're loading yourself up with operating expense that you don't, we're not asking for operating expense. I think what we're asking for is, I think 3 out of the next 4 projects that have been identified are in the fourth quarter. So we've got projects that are on the shelf that aren't shelf ready, but they're, you know, they're getting close, that we need capital. And we're not looking for a slush fund to go get payroll. We're looking for a fund that you can build up capital reserves, do some work along the way, and then every so often, you've got a bundle of money that you can apply for a bigger grant, where you've got enough match to go after it. So I understand, you know, what the comments are, but I think we have to also understand how that's proportionate. If you want 25% capital out of your dollar, it's gonna take you a long time to get enough money to do anything, unless you make it more than 0.07.
Anyone else? Okay. Declare this public hearing to be closed. Take a 1-minute break and go to our city council meeting.
Guess I lied.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.